I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Right now, somewhere in the world, a cat is pressed against a sleeping dog, sharing warmth without ceremony, as if the difference in species never mattered at all. You'll discover how cats feel, adapt, bond, and sometimes struggle in homes shared with dogs, rabbits, birds, children, and other cats. And by the end, you'll understand why the emotional flexibility of this ancient, independent creature is one of the quiet wonders of the living world. Welcome to the Sleepy Safari. Wherever you are right now, perhaps thinking of your own home and the different creatures, human and animal, who share it with you. Allow yourself to settle into this gentle curiosity. We'll discover 100 animal facts about cat emotions in multi-species households. From the first cautious sniff at a new dog's nose, to the slow negotiation of shared sleeping space, to the morning when two animals who once watched each other warily are found curled together in the same patch of sun. These quiet explorations of the animal kingdom create a sanctuary for curious, restless minds. A soft like, subscribe, or sharing helps other animal lovers discover this peaceful space and brings us closer to protect these stories. One sleepy soul at a time. It means the world to us and to the creatures we celebrate. Settle deeper into your pillows now. Let your shoulders drop. Your breathing slow and steady. You don't need to remember every fact. Just feel that peaceful heaviness spreading through you. Like a cat that has finally decided the new dog is not a threat, curling into its own corner of the couch, close enough to feel the warmth, far enough to keep its dignity. Safe, soft, ready to rest. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're resting in a quiet home where different creatures have learned to share the same warm space. Let your mind settle into that gentle coexistence. And now we begin. Cats are often described as solitary animals. And in the wild, the small wild cat ancestor from which domestic cats descend, Felis libica, did live largely alone, but this description has always been incomplete for the domestic cat. Over 10,000 years of living in human settlements, cats have demonstrated a remarkable capacity for social flexibility. They form bonds with other cats, with dogs, with humans of different ages, and occasionally with animals as unlikely as rabbits, guinea pigs, and birds. The mechanism behind this flexibility is not fully understood, but researchers believe it is rooted in early experience, neurological plasticity in kittenhood, and the particular emotional intelligence that domestication has slowly shaped in this species. A cat's social world is not fixed. It is negotiated, one relationship at a time. The first hours of a cat's life inside a multi-species household are among the most carefully studied moments in companion animal behavior research. When a new cat enters a home that already contains a dog, the initial responses of both animals reflect their species-specific defaults. The dog is likely to approach with direct, forward energy. The cat is likely to retreat, observe from a distance, and assess before committing to any social decision. These responses are not hostility. They are the expression of two very different social operating systems encountering each other. The dog's social default is approach and investigate. The cat's is watch and evaluate. What looks like the cat being unfriendly is often simply the cat being a cat. The emotional state a cat brings into a new multi-species household is shaped significantly by its early socialization windows. The primary sensitive period runs roughly from 2 to 7 weeks of age, when the brain is most open to forming social templates. A secondary window extends receptivity for new experiences out to around 9 to 14 weeks. Though the primary period carries the strongest influence, kittens exposed to dogs, children, and a range of sounds and smells during these early weeks develop fundamentally different neural templates for what counts as safe and familiar. A kitten that heard a dog's bark during week 4 of its life, associated with warmth and no negative consequence, carries that association forward. A kitten with no such exposure carries instead an absence of information. And absence reads, to the mammalian brain, as potential threat. Research published in journals of animal behavior has consistently found that the order of introduction matters in multi-species households. Cats introduced into homes with pre-existing dogs tend to adapt differently than dogs introduced into homes with pre-existing cats. The resident animal carries a territorial comfort that the newcomer lacks. Resident cats, whose established sensory map of the home is suddenly disrupted by a dog's arrival, show more prolonged stress responses than cats who arrive as the newcomer into a dog-occupied home. The reason is counterintuitive but well documented. The resident cat has more to lose. Its entire known world has been altered. The newcomer is simply discovering an unfamiliar world, which, while stressful, does not carry the additional weight of loss. Cortisol is the primary stress hormone researchers measure when assessing a cat's emotional response to multi-species cohabitation. In the weeks following the introduction of a new animal into the home, resident cats typically show elevated cortisol levels in urine samples. Studies comparing different introduction methods have found that when animals were first separated by a barrier that allowed scent exchange before visual contact, cortisol returned to baseline levels significantly faster than in households where the animals were introduced face-to-face immediately. The chemistry of stress responds to the pace of introduction. Slowness is not delay. In the emotional life of a cat entering a new social arrangement, slowness is kindness, expressed in time. The scent of another species is the first language cats use when assessing a new household companion. Before any visual contact occurs, cats investigate bedding, toys, and shared spaces for olfactory information about the other animal. A dog's scent carries information about its size, sex, reproductive status, diet, and emotional history in that space. Cats process this information with a neurological sophistication that humans, with our comparatively limited olfactory systems, can only partially appreciate. The olfactory bulb in a cat's brain is proportionally large, and a dedicated organ called the vomeronasal organ allows the cat to process social and emotional chemical signals separately from ordinary odor. When a cat presses its nose to a dog's blanket and holds still, it is reading. Researchers consider this one of the more reassuring patterns in companion animal science. For most cats and dogs, the stress response to cohabitation decreases substantially within the first 3 to 6 months. And in households where introduction was managed thoughtfully, many animal pairs reach what researchers describe as affiliative neutrality or genuine companionship within the first year. Affiliative neutrality means the animals share space comfortably, without stress markers, without avoidance behaviors, without the behavioral signals of tension. Genuine companionship means something more: mutual grooming, proximity seeking, play initiation, and the kind of resting contact that requires trust in the other's body. The question of whether cats and dogs in the same household actually like each other, as opposed to simply tolerating each other, has been investigated with increasing precision. A study examining behavioral markers in cohabiting cats and dogs found that animals classified as having positive relationships showed specific behaviors that researchers identified as affiliative: voluntary approach, resting in physical contact, mutual gaze, play behavior, and grooming directed toward the other. These are the same markers used to assess positive relationships between cats and between cats and humans. The emotional vocabulary a cat uses with a trusted dog is structurally similar to the one it uses with a trusted person. The relationship is translated, not invented from scratch. Cats in multi-species households develop what researchers call individualized social maps, mental representations of each resident's emotional significance, behavioral tendencies, and social role. A cat living with 2 dogs and a rabbit does not experience all 3 as interchangeable. Each relationship is tracked separately. The older, calm dog may be assigned low-threat status and allowed close contact. The younger, excitable dog may be maintained at a cautious distance. The rabbit may be assessed as neither threat nor social partner, simply a neutral presence in the shared ecology of the home. This differentiated social mapping requires sustained attention and memory. It is cognitive and emotional work, performed quietly, revised continuously. As the household's social dynamics shift, one of the more consistent findings in multi-species household research is that cats modify their behavior differently depending on the species of their companion. When cats interact with dogs, they use more body posture signals and less vocalization than when interacting with other cats or humans. With dogs, the tail position becomes more prominent as a signal. Research has found that cats and dogs in shared households use some of the same physical vocabulary to mean different things, and they learn to navigate this difference over time. When a cat raises its tail in greeting, dogs often respond with friendly interest, reading the gesture correctly. But when a dog approaches with its own tail held high, a posture that carries assertive meaning in canine communication, cats may initially interpret this as a challenge rather than a welcome. Studies observing cat-dog pairs have documented that animals living together gradually learn to calibrate these cross-species signals, building a shared interpretive framework out of accumulated experience. The role of a cat's whiskers in multi-species social interactions is more complex than is commonly understood. Whisker position is not just an emotional signal directed outward. It is also a sensory gathering posture. When a cat fans its whiskers forward during a cautious approach to a dog or other new animal, it is maximizing the tactile field of its whisker array, which can detect subtle air currents and nearby movement at distances too close for comfortable visual focus. In a multi-species context, this forward whisker position often precedes nose-to-nose contact. It is investigative, not aggressive. The cat is, in a sensory sense, reaching out before its body does. Children in the household represent a distinct category of social partner for cats, one that requires its own emotional processing. Young children move unpredictably, produce sudden sounds at irregular intervals, and have not yet developed the body language fluency that adult humans carry. A cat assessing a toddler is assessing an entity that does not consistently follow any of the behavioral patterns the cat has learned to read. Studies examining cat behavior around children of different ages have found that cats in households with children under 5 show more frequent use of elevated perches and hiding spaces. Behavioral indicators of a need for control and predictability. This is not fear of the child as an individual. It is a considered response to an environment that has become less readable. The elevated perch is one of the most emotionally important resources in a multi-species household. From above, a cat can observe all the social actors in the space without being accessible to them. Research examining cat stress indicators in enriched versus unenriched multi-species households found that access to vertical space was one of the clearer variables correlating with lower cortisol levels in cats. A cat on a high shelf is not being antisocial. It is using the architecture of the space to manage its own emotional state, taking in social information while maintaining the sensory separation that allows its nervous system to regulate. The perch is not a retreat from the household. It is a way of staying in it at a sustainable emotional distance. The hiding space serves a different function from the elevated perch, where the perch offers oversight with visibility. The hiding space offers withdrawal from input entirely. For a cat whose nervous system has reached a threshold of stimulation, the hiding space is not a sign of distress, but a sign of appropriate self-regulation. Research on feline stress responses in multi-species households has found that cats with consistent access to hiding spaces show fewer behavioral indicators of chronic stress than cats in environments where such spaces are not available. The box in the corner of a bedroom, the space beneath a bed, the shelf behind the books. These are not just cozy spots. They are emotional resets built into the architecture of the cat's daily life. Take a deep breath and feel this. You're an animal too. A warm-blooded creature navigating a world full of other beings. All of you sharing the same need for safety, for warmth, for the reassurance of a familiar presence in the dark. Just like the cats we've been learning about tonight. Finding your way through the social landscape of a shared space. Learning who is safe, who requires watching, who has earned your ease. Somewhere right now, in a house somewhere on Earth, a cat and a dog are sleeping less than a foot apart. Neither of them chose the arrangement, and yet here they are, warm and still. Each one's breathing slowing toward the same quiet rhythm. You're part of the animal kingdom. You always have been. Now we continue. The dog's bark presents a particular challenge for cats in multi-species households. Not just as a startling sound, but as a communicative signal the cat is not wired to decode. A dog barks to express excitement, alarm, greeting, and frustration, among other states. The cat's acoustic communication system has no equivalent signal. Research examining feline auditory stress responses has found that cats show elevated arousal markers, pupil dilation, ear rotation, and increased movement in response to unfamiliar barking, but progressively less response to the barking of the specific dog they live with over time. The habituation is not simply sensory, it is social. The cat learns that this particular bark, from this particular dog, carries a known meaning in a shared emotional context. When cats and dogs develop positive relationships in shared households, researchers have documented the emergence of what they call interspecific play behavior that crosses the species boundary and requires both animals to negotiate a shared understanding of the play frame. A cat and dog engaged in genuine interspecific play show the same behavioral markers that researchers use to identify play in intraspecific contexts. Self-handicapping, where the larger or more powerful animal moderates its behavior. Role reversal, where the animals take turns initiating and responding, and the relaxed facial and body postures that distinguish play from real aggression. The negotiation required to establish and maintain the play frame across a species boundary is, in the language of comparative cognition, a sophisticated social achievement. Research on attachment in multi-species households has found that cats can form what attachment theorists describe as secure bonds, not only with their human caregivers, but with specific animal companions in the home. When cats were separated from a bonded dog companion for a short period in a study designed to assess separation responses, a subset of the cats showed behavioral changes consistent with mild distress, increased vocalization and searching behaviors that resolved specifically upon the dog's return. The reunion response, rather than the separation itself, was the clearest indicator of attachment. The cat's behavior normalized when the specific companion returned. Not just any dog, not just any animal, the one it had formed a bond with. The relationship between cats and rabbits in shared households is one of the less studied but behaviorally interesting areas of multi-species cohabitation research. Rabbits, as prey animals, trigger the predatory attention of cats through their movement patterns. Specifically, the quick, darting acceleration that activates feline pursuit instincts. Yet documented cases of cats and rabbits living in peaceful cohabitation are not rare, particularly when the animals are introduced young and in a gradual, controlled way. What appears to shift in these relationships is the cat's classification of the rabbit, moving it cognitively and emotionally from the prey category into something more like the neutral social partner category. This reclassification is not absolute. It can be disrupted by certain movements or sounds, but it can be stable enough to sustain years of peaceful coexistence. The presence of birds in a multi-species household introduces a category of challenge distinct from that of dogs or rabbits. Birds produce sounds in frequency ranges that align closely with the vocal range of small prey animals. They move in ways that trigger pursuit interest. And for birds who are let out of their enclosures, they occupy a vertical space that cats track with high attention. Research on cat behavior in households with birds has found wide individual variation. Some cats maintain sustained predatory focus on bird companions for years. Others appear to habituate and lose active interest. The determining variables appear to include the cat's individual predatory drive, its early socialization history, and the consistency of management in the household. Coexistence is possible, but it requires environmental design and attentive oversight. A study examining hormonal profiles of cats in multi-species households compared to single-species households found something that gave researchers pause in a meaningful way. Cats in stable, well-managed multi-species homes did not show chronically elevated stress hormones compared to cats in single-species homes. The initial adjustment period produced elevated cortisol, but cats in households where introduction had been managed carefully and where sufficient resources were available, food stations, litter boxes, is perch, and hiding spaces, not shared with other animals, reached hormonal baselines comparable to single-species households within months. The finding suggests that multi-species cohabitation is not inherently stressful for cats. It is the quality of the environment and the management of the introduction, not the presence of other species itself, that determines the long-term emotional outcome. Midway through our journey, breathe slowly and imagine this. You're in a quiet home in the late evening. The last lamp has been turned low. In one corner, a dog is already asleep, its breathing slow and even. On the back of the couch, a cat sits upright, watching the room with half-lidded eyes. It is not anxious. It is simply doing what cats do in the last hours of the evening, assessing, confirming, registering that everything in the known world is where it should be. In a while, the cat will jump down. It will step across the floor, past the sleeping dog, and curl into its own chosen spot. The dog will not stir. Feel the temperature of the room, the soft sound of two different creatures breathing, the particular quality of peace that comes when very different things have found a way to rest near each other. Everything is exactly as it should be. Now we continue, together, through their world. The social behavior cats display toward other cats in the same household is shaped by a complex interplay of personality, resource availability, relationship history, and ongoing negotiation. Unlike dogs, who evolved from a highly social pack ancestor and carry neural wiring oriented toward hierarchy and group coordination, cats carry the social architecture of a more flexible system, capable of close bonds, but not dependent on them. This means that two cats in the same household may develop a warm, affiliative relationship, or they may develop a parallel coexistence, each occupying the shared space without significant conflict, but without significant closeness either. Both outcomes are socially normal for cats. The absence of obvious affection is not the presence of suffering. Research on multi-cat households has identified what behaviorists call the social buffering effect. The presence of a trusted animal companion measurably reduces a cat's physiological stress response to novel or mildly challenging stimuli. Cats, tested in mildly stressful conditions alongside a familiar companion, showed lower cortisol responses and faster behavioral recovery than cats tested alone or alongside an unfamiliar animal. The familiar companion functions as a kind of emotional anchor. The stress response is still activated, but the ceiling it reaches is lower, and the recovery is faster. This animal-to-animal buffering is distinct from the secure base a trusted human provides, though both operate through the same underlying principle. A known presence makes the unknown more manageable. The role of food resources in multi-species households is one of the most practically significant and emotionally charged dimensions of feline well-being in these environments. Cats are what ethologists call resource-sensitive by evolutionary history. Animals whose ancestors had to secure and protect food against competitors. In a multi-species household, the perception of food competition, whether or not actual competition exists, can generate chronic, low-level unease. Studies have found that cats in multi-animal households show notably lower stress markers when feeding stations are positioned in separate locations, ideally with a clear visual barrier between them, and when feeding schedules provide predictability. The cat does not need to be alone while eating. It needs to feel that it will not be interrupted, approached, or displaced. Security at the food source is a foundational emotional need. Litter box placement and availability is one of the most studied variables in multi-species household cat behavior. and one of the most reliably connected to indicators of feline emotional well-being or distress. The widely cited guideline of 1 litter box per cat, plus 1 additional box, is not arbitrary. It reflects research showing that cats in shared households with insufficient private elimination spaces show elevated cortisol levels, increased elimination outside the box, and behavioral markers of anxiety. Cats are highly sensitive to the scent signatures of other animals near their elimination sites. The litter box is not just a practical facility. It is a space whose safety, privacy, and cleanliness carries genuine emotional weight. The capacity of cats to distinguish individual animals within a multi-species household and to calibrate their emotional responses accordingly has been demonstrated in studies using habituation and recovery paradigms. Cats presented with visual and olfactory stimuli associated with a familiar household companion showed lower arousal responses than when presented with equivalent stimuli from an unfamiliar animal. This distinction was maintained reliably across different companions in the same household. The cat responded differently to the smell of its known dog, its known cat companion, and a stranger. Each familiar individual existed as a distinct entry in the cat's social memory, associated with a specific emotional valence. The household, from the cat's perspective, is not a single social space. It is a collection of specific relationships, each with its own emotional register. Senior cats in multi-species households present a distinct picture in the research literature. As cats age, typically beyond 10 years, they show increased sensitivity to environmental change, reduced tolerance for novel stimuli, and a heightened need for predictable routine. The introduction of a new animal into a household containing a senior cat is associated with more prolonged stress responses and slower adjustment compared to introductions involving younger cats. This reflects genuine neurological changes in the aging cat's brain, including shifts in how emotional memory and novelty response are processed. Senior cats in established multi-species households that have been stable for years, however, often show the opposite pattern. They are settled and calm, the existing relationships functioning as a source of regularity and emotional grounding that supports their well-being into advanced age. Kittens entering multi-species households show a strikingly different emotional trajectory from adult cats. The kitten's still developing nervous system is, in neurological terms, more open to social learning, new species, new sounds. New interaction patterns are integrated more readily during the sensitive periods of early development. Studies have found that kittens introduced to dogs during the primary socialization window are more likely to develop positive or neutral orientations toward dogs as adults than kittens introduced after this period. The emotional flexibility of the kitten brain is not just sentimentally charming. It is a documented neurological reality with measurable long-term consequences for the animal's capacity to live peaceably in a socially complex home. The emotional experiences of dogs in multi-species households with cats have begun to receive more research attention in recent years, correcting an earlier imbalance in the literature that focused almost exclusively on the cat's adaptation. Dogs in households with cats show their own behavioral adjustments. Reduced direct approach behavior over time. Learned restraint in greeting. Modified playstyles that account for the cat's smaller size and different social signals. Dogs with secure attachment to their human caregivers appear to adapt more successfully to feline cohabitants. in part because secure dogs are less likely to seek social regulation through persistent pursuit or high-energy engagement. The quality of the dog-human bond, it turns out, is a meaningful predictor of how well the dog and cat will ultimately get along. The neurochemical infrastructure of positive social bonding has been documented extensively in human-animal interactions, with studies finding oxytocin increases in both humans and dogs following warm contact. Whether the same mutual hormonal exchange occurs between bonded cats and dogs in shared households is an open question, and the research in this specific pairing remains limited. What behavioral studies do confirm is that cats and dogs in positive relationships display the affiliative contact patterns, mutual rest, grooming, and proximity seeking, that in other mammalian pairs are associated with social bonding chemistry. The behavior is real, even where the precise hormonal picture is still coming into focus. The way cats use vocalization in multi-species households differs markedly from their vocal behavior in single-species contexts. Cats do not typically meow at other cats. The meow is a vocalization that domestic cats developed through close association with humans. A cross-species communication tool evolved specifically for the human ear. In multi-species households, cats have been observed developing specific vocalizations directed at specific animal companions. Sounds that appear to serve social rather than purely communicative functions. Soft chirps directed at a bonded dog during grooming. Trills offered as a dog approaches a resting spot. Whether these vocalizations are cross-species adaptations or simply signals that happen to be directed cross-species is an open question. What researchers have documented is that the vocal repertoire of a cat in a complex social household is richer and more varied in its targeting than that of a cat in a simpler social environment. Grooming behavior between cohabiting cats and dogs is one of the most striking and consistently cited indicators of genuine interspecies affiliation. Allogrooming, grooming directed toward another individual, is one of the most physiologically meaningful social behaviors a cat engages in. It triggers oxytocin release in both participants. It requires proximity, sustained stillness, and an absence of defensive alertness in the groomed animal. When a cat grooms a dog, carefully working over an ear or the top of the dog's head, while the dog remains still and relaxed beneath the attention, it is performing an act that carries, in feline terms, the full weight of social acceptance. The cat has classified this dog as inside the circle of trusted others, worthy of the same physical care it might offer a bonded cat or a loved human. You're still here, still listening in the quiet dark. Take a slow breath. Notice how your body feels a little softer now, a little more like the resting animals we've been visiting together, each one settled into its own particular spot in a shared space. Warm, still, breathing easy. We're exploring the emotional world of cats among other creatures. You and I, and everyone listening tonight. There's no rush, no test at the end. Just the quiet pleasure of understanding something real about the animals who share our homes. And by extension, about the way different kinds of beings can, slowly, learn to rest near each other. Let's continue. The role of human behavior in shaping the emotional climate of a multi-species household is one of the most significant and least examined variables in the literature. Cats in households where the human caregiver models calm, confident interaction with all animal members show faster integration and lower stress indicators than cats in households where the human's own anxiety about the animal's interactions is expressed through tense body language, hovering proximity, or sudden interventions. Cats are sensitive readers of human emotional state. When a person is uneasy about how the cat and dog will interact, that unease is registered by the cat as environmental information, heightening rather than reducing the cat's own vigilance. The human is, in this sense, part of the emotional system of the multi-species household, not an outside manager of it. Research on feline social referencing in multi-species contexts has found that cats look to their human caregivers' behavior when assessing an unfamiliar animal's safety. In a study design where cats encountered an unfamiliar dog while their owner either maintained a calm, neutral expression or showed mild concern, cats showed more hesitant approach behavior and more avoidance in the condition where the owner expressed concern. The human's emotional verdict functioned as a social reference, the same kind of check-in behavior documented in human infants, with caregivers encountering unfamiliar stimuli. The cat was not just reading the dog, it was reading the human's reading of the dog. The emotional well-being of cats in multi-species households is assessed by veterinary behaviorists using a framework that evaluates 5 domains: nutrition, physical environment, health, behavioral interactions, and mental state. This 5 domains model, originally developed for general animal welfare assessment and increasingly applied to companion animals, provides a structured way to consider how each dimension of the household environment contributes to or detracts from overall feline emotional health. In multi-species contexts, the behavioral interactions domain carries particular weight. The quality, frequency, and valence of a cat's daily interactions with other animals in the home cumulatively shapes its baseline emotional state. A household with excellent nutrition and physical space, but chronic social tension is, by this framework, an emotionally limited one. Play between cats and children in multi-species households follows patterns that behavioral researchers have documented with particular interest. Cats who are habituated to child-directed play, which tends to be less consistent, more variable, and sometimes rougher than adult-directed play, develop what behaviorists describe as a broader play threshold, a greater tolerance for variation in the play interaction before the cat disengages or signals discomfort. These cats also tend to be more responsive to the social cues of children generally, approaching rather than avoiding, participating in shared games, and showing more relaxed body postures in children's presence. The habituation is not simply sensory, it is social. The cat has learned this specific child as an individual, registered the meaning behind its particular ways of moving and reaching, and found that the discomfort it might have initially expected did not arrive. Research using accelerometers and heart rate monitors attached to cats in multi-species households has begun to provide real-time physiological data about feline emotional states throughout the day. What these studies are finding is that cats in established multi-species households show very similar activity and physiological patterns to cats in single-species households during the majority of their daily time. The moments of elevated heart rate and increased movement, indicators of higher arousal, are clustered around specific triggers: feeding times when other animals are near the food area, moments when the dog engages in sudden high-energy behavior, and the arrival of unfamiliar visitors, the baseline of the day, the long, slow middle hours of rest and quiet investigation. looks largely the same. The multi-species household, once established, is not a state of perpetual negotiation for the cat. It is simply home. The social personality of individual cats is one of the stronger predictors of how they will fare in multi-species households. Stronger than the species of companion, the size of the home, or the order of introduction. Cats, scoring high on the extraversion dimension of the Feline 5 personality framework, which identifies 5 dimensions across a sample of 2,802 cats and measures sociability, activity level, and the tendency to approach rather than avoid novelty, adapt more readily and more fully to multi-species cohabitation than cats scoring low on this dimension. High neuroticism cats, characterized by anxiety, sensitivity to change, and a tendency toward vigilance, show slower adaptation and more prolonged stress indicators regardless of how carefully the introduction is managed. This does not mean high neuroticism cats cannot find ease in multi-species households. It means they benefit from more time, more environmental support, and more patience from their human caregivers. The attachment bond between a cat and its primary human caregiver functions in multi-species households as what researchers call a secure base for social exploration. Cats with secure human attachment show more exploratory behavior toward new animal household members than cats whose human bond is less settled. They approach more, retreat less, and habituate faster. The security the human provides does not make the new animal less unfamiliar. It makes the cat's internal state more capable of managing unfamiliarity. A cat that knows it has a safe harbor in its human relationship approaches the uncertain waters of a new animal companion with something that functions like steadiness. The quality of the human bond ripples outward into every other social relationship in the household. The phenomenon of cats seeking out specific individuals in a multi-species household during times of stress or discomfort, preferentially moving toward the human caregiver rather than toward an animal companion, suggests that the human relationship occupies a distinct category in the cat's social architecture. Animal companions, even bonded ones, are social peers. The human caregiver is something closer to what attachment researchers call a haven of safety. The individual the cat moves toward when it needs more than companionship. This hierarchy of social resources, the trusted animal companion for social ease, the trusted human for emotional security, reflects a nuanced emotional intelligence. The cat knows what it needs, and it knows who provides it. Older research had suggested that cats and dogs were inherently incompatible, a cultural assumption so widespread it entered everyday language. The phrase "fighting like cats and dogs" implies a natural, inevitable conflict. More recent behavioral research tells a different story. Studies examining long-term cohabitation data across thousands of multi-species households have found that the majority of cats and dogs in shared homes develop stable, low-conflict relationships, and a substantial proportion develop what researchers classify as positive affiliative relationships. The cultural assumption was built from observations of introductions without adequate preparation and animals without early interspecies socialization. When the conditions are right, the animals reliably demonstrate that the assumption was wrong. You might be feeling tired now. That is exactly right. Breathe slowly and think about cycles. Animals live in cycles. The cycle of day and night, of tension and ease. of strangeness and familiarity. What was unfamiliar becomes known. What was uncertain becomes, over time, predictable and safe. The cats we've been learning about tonight, each one follows its own rhythm in a complex social world. The slow retreat that becomes a cautious approach, the distant observation that becomes a shared nap, the household that began as foreign territory and became, over weeks and months and quiet mornings, simply home. You don't need to fight the tide, just let it carry you. Like cats settling into their chosen spots in homes full of warm and different lives, you can settle too. We're almost there now, almost home. In preliminary work, using brain imaging techniques adapted for awake, small mammals, researchers have observed patterns consistent with reduced amygdala activation when cats encounter familiar companions versus strangers, even when that familiar companion is a member of a different species. The familiar dog produces less activation in the threat detection regions of the brain than an unfamiliar cat does. Familiarity is processed by the brain, not as mere recognition but as safety. The shift is measurable, and it appears to be real. Research examining the long-term emotional trajectories of cats in multi-species households has followed animals from the point of initial introduction through years of cohabitation. What these longitudinal studies consistently find is that the relationship between a cat and its animal companions is not static. It continues to develop. Cats and dogs who have lived together for 3 years show more affiliative behaviors on average than the same pair showed at 1 year. The relationship deepens with time, not because the animals change their fundamental nature, but because the accumulation of shared experience, shared spaces, shared routines, shared small moments of ease, gradually builds something like functions, like history. They know each other, and knowing each other in the emotional life of a social mammal matters. The presence of feline pheromones, specifically the synthetic analog of the facial pheromone cats deposit through cheek rubbing, has been used in clinical settings to support cat emotional well-being during multi-species household integration. Plug-in diffusers releasing this analog, which communicates familiarity and safety in feline chemical language, have been studied in controlled trials and found to reduce stress-related behaviors in cats during the initial adjustment period. The effect is not large. It does not replace careful introduction, but it provides a layer of chemical communication that says, in the language the cat's olfactory brain most deeply understands. This space carries the chemical signature of something known, something claimed, something safe. The social buffering function of animal companions in multi-species households has been studied from the human side as well. People living with both cats and dogs report higher subjective well-being scores than those living with only one species. According to several survey-based studies of human-animal bond research, the mechanism proposed is not that more animals means more benefit, but that the presence of multiple species creates a richer, more varied social environment that engages different aspects of human, social, and emotional processing. The cat and the dog offer different things. The cat offers quiet presence, the choice to be near, the calm warmth of an animal that does not demand engagement. The dog offers reciprocity, active approach, the social enthusiasm of an animal oriented outward. Together, they provide a range of emotional resource that neither alone could. Cats in multi-species households develop what researchers have called cross-species gesture libraries, behavioral repertoires that include signals borrowed or adapted from interaction with other species. A cat that has lived closely with a dog for years may incorporate more tail movement into affiliative contexts than cats without canine companions. Dogs long habituated to cats sometimes show more restrained, less direct approaches than dogs without feline companions, having internalized the cat's preference for slower, non-frontal greeting. These cross-species behavioral adaptations have been documented in ethological studies and represent something genuinely interesting. Animals adjusting their own behavioral language to better communicate with a companion from a different species. The emotional life of a cat in a multi-species household is a life shaped by negotiation, habituation, memory, and the slow construction of trust across species lines. It is not a simpler life than that of a cat in a single species home. In many ways, it is more complex, more demanding of cognitive and emotional flexibility. But the research does not suggest it is a harder life. For cats with the personality and early socialization history that supports social flexibility, the multi-species household may offer something valuable: a richer social world, more varied companionship, more opportunities for the kind of low-stakes social engagement that keeps the nervous system calibrated and the brain engaged. The way a cat approaches a new dog on the 100th encounter versus the first encounter is one of the most quietly meaningful progressions in companion animal research. On the first encounter, the cat typically keeps its head low and its tail held carefully neutral, monitoring without committing, reading without responding. On the 100th encounter, the cat may simply glance up from its resting spot, register the dog's arrival, and return to what it was doing. That reduction in response is not indifference. It is the behavioral expression of a brain that has reclassified this individual from uncertain to known, from potentially challenging to contextually safe. The calm of the 100th encounter was purchased with the attention of the 99 before it. Trust is built in this way, incrementally, in looks and stillnesses that add up. Research has examined whether cats in multi-species households show changes in their relationship with their primary human caregiver, whether the presence of other animals dilutes the human-cat bond. The findings suggest it does not. Cats in households with multiple animal companions show attachment security scores to their primary caregiver comparable to those of cats in single-species homes. The attachment bond with the human exists in its own psychological space, not competing with animal companionships, but complementing them. The cat appears to maintain separate emotional accounts for each relationship in its social world, each one drawing on different aspects of its capacity for attachment without diminishing the others. The long-term effects of positive multi-species cohabitation on feline cognitive engagement are beginning to be studied, with some early findings suggesting that social complexity is associated with maintained cognitive activity into older age. Cats in enriched social environments, those that include meaningful interactions with multiple individuals of different species, show less rapid decline on tests of cognitive flexibility and spatial memory than cats in less socially stimulating environments. The mechanism is not fully established, but researchers draw on parallel findings in human cognitive aging research. Social engagement appears to maintain neural circuit activity in ways that support cognitive resilience. The cat, whose morning involves a greeting exchange with the dog, a cautious assessment of the rabbit's activity, and a check-in with the human is a cat whose brain has been doing something in the morning. The expression of feline contentment in multi-species households often takes forms that are easy to miss, precisely because they are so quiet. The cat sleeping on the same couch as the dog, not pressed close, but within reach, not choosing the far room when this room is available. The cat that follows its human and dog companion into the yard on a warm afternoon, not because it was brought, but because both familiar presences are there and the space is known. The cat that eats its breakfast with the dog eating at the adjacent station, settled enough not to guard its food, settled enough not to watch the other animal. These are not large demonstrations of interspecies harmony. They are the small, daily, accumulated expressions of a nervous system that has found its equilibrium in a complex social world. Cats that develop positive relationships with animal companions in shared households show a behavioral pattern researchers describe as social synchrony, aligning their rest periods, activity periods, and even breathing rates with those of their companions. This synchrony, documented in cat-cat and cat-dog pairs, suggests that the relationship has moved beyond simple coexistence into something more integrated. The animals are not just sharing a space. Their biological rhythms are beginning to influence each other. The same kind of physiological attunement documented between closely bonded humans. The slow movement toward a shared rhythm is one of the most intimate things that two different creatures in the same home can do without any deliberate intention. It simply happens. When the trust is real, every multi-species household is a small experiment in social adaptation, a daily negotiation between animals whose ancestors never shared the same territory, conducted in the compressed and unusual ecology of a human home. Cats in these households are demonstrating, in real time, something that the paleontological record could only hint at. That social flexibility is a deeply adaptive capacity. That the emotional system is not fixed at birth. That trust can be built across almost any boundary given time. Gentleness, and the shared experience of enough quiet mornings. The cat watching the family dog from the arm of the couch is performing a kind of ongoing research. It watches, it records, it updates. The dog that enters the room in the early evening is assessed against the accumulated data of all the times that dog entered the room before, cross-referenced against what happened, whether ease or tension followed, what the outcome was. And when the data is good, when the accumulated history says this dog has never been a source of difficulty, the cat does something small and significant. It looks away. Looking away, in feline behavioral language, is not disinterest. It is trust. The decision not to watch is the decision that watching is no longer necessary. A cat that looks away from a dog it has known for 3 years is telling that dog something true. I have enough information about you. You are safe in my world. I don't need to keep my eyes on you. The slow blink between species, a cat offering the long, soft, eye-closed gesture to a familiar dog or a trusted human child, is one of the more studied cross-species signals in the companion animal literature. Its occurrence between a cat and a non-cat is documented, reproducibly, and associated with affiliative behavioral context. The cat does not slow blink at strangers. It does not slow blink at the dog it has only recently met. The slow blink is offered when the relationship has reached a certain threshold of ease, when the other has been categorized not just as safe but as known, as part of the inner circle of trusted presences. And so, our quiet journey through the emotional lives of cats in multi-species households comes to a gentle close. We've traveled from the first cautious sniff at an unfamiliar animal's bedding to the neurological shifts that occur when a familiar dog produces less alertness in the brain than a strange one, to the slow synchrony of breathing between a cat and dog who have, over a year of shared mornings, come to rest in each other's rhythm. We discovered along the way that social flexibility, the capacity to extend trust across species lines, is not the exception in cat emotional life. It is a capacity that was always there, waiting for the right conditions. From the kitten whose open neurological windows wrote new templates for what is safe, to the senior cat who has found in a long-known companion the predictability its aging nervous system most needs. We've glimpsed how feline emotional intelligence meets the social complexity of the modern home, not by surrendering its nature, but by extending it. We've met a creature that looks away when it trusts, that slow blinks across species, that synchronizes its breathing with a dog it has decided to accept into its world, reminding us that the most meaningful forms of connection rarely announce themselves. They arrive quietly, in small, repeated acts of presence, until one day the looking away becomes natural and the shared nap becomes unremarkable, and then it has become home. Cats in multi-species households remind us that the capacity for trust is wider than we assume, that the circle of familiar others can be drawn larger, more slowly, with more careful attention than we usually give it, but wider. Much of this emotional work happens in the long, quiet middle of days we barely notice, in the shared resource of a warm afternoon, in the gradual revision of unfamiliar into known, in the small, daily decision, made again and again by an animal with golden eyes and ancient instincts, to remain in the room, by pausing to understand the emotional architecture of a cat navigating a world of different creatures. We remember something about our own, that the ability to extend ease across difference is not a simple thing, and that its achievement in any relationship is worth noticing. The cat on the couch beside the dog earned that ease through time, through attention, through thousands of small, unremarkable moments that added up to trust. That is how most of the real things are built. In these final moments, take the deepest breath you can. Think about connection. Every cat that has ever looked away from a dog it once approached with caution. Every pair of animals that found their way from wariness to warmth across a species line. Every household that became, through patience and time, a place where different creatures rested near each other in the same quiet dark. The cats we explored tonight, each one extending its emotional world outward into new and uncertain social territory, finding there, against expectation, something that functioned like companionship. Let your entire being dissolve into this community of creatures, into the knowledge that you belong to something larger than yourself, into the peace of kinship with all living things. The circle of trusted others can always be drawn a little wider. You are part of a world that keeps learning this. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left between you and rest. Only peace. Only breath. Only the soft darkness welcoming you home. If this quiet journey through the emotional lives of cats in multi-species households helped you relax or feel connected to the natural world tonight, consider sharing it with someone else who loves animals. A soft like, subscribe, or quiet share helps other curious souls discover this peaceful space. It might be exactly what their restless mind needs to finally let go and drift. One quiet tap, one peaceful night, one sleepy soul at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight, through the complex and tender world of cats learning to live alongside different creatures. You can allow these thoughts of slow blinks across species, of cortisol settling, of breathing synchronized over months of shared mornings, to fade now, like the last movement in a house gone quiet for the night, leaving only the soft knowledge that very different things can, with time, find a way to rest near each other. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, like a cat that has settled into the spot beside the sleeping dog, not pressed close, but close enough. Both of them held by the same warm room, the same quiet dark. If sleep comes, let it carry you like the slow drift of two different creatures breathing, finding the same rhythm, smoothly, inevitably, into the place where all the social negotiations of the day dissolve and there is only rest. If your eyes are still open, another journey is waiting for you, ready to continue the exploration. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in that soft darkness where cats also rest. In homes full of warm and different lives, where the work of trust has been completed, at least for tonight. Tomorrow, somewhere, a cat will look away from a dog it has decided to accept. The slow blink will cross the species line again. The breathing will find its shared rhythm in the early morning. The ancient, ongoing negotiation between different creatures learning to share the same world will continue. But tonight belongs to stillness. Sleep well, gentle soul, and remember, you too are an animal, evolved to rest, to dream, to wake renewed, and somewhere nearby, in the deep, warm, quiet, different creatures are breathing close to each other, each one safe, each one known, each one held by the familiar dark of a place that has become, over time, home. Fall asleep to gentle facts. Good night.